Welcome to Perspectives El Paso. I'm Leon Blevins of El Paso Community College Television. As you can see, we have Christmas decorations here and Christmas presents. And I have a very special guest today. I've never had this guest on all 8 years that I've been doing this program, and I was finally able to convince him to come to El Paso a little early in the fall schedule and be on this show with me. And this is Santa Claus from the North Pole. Santa.
Whoa! How are you?
Welcome to Perspectives El Paso.
Well, thank you for having me.
I tell you, when my team heard that you were walking into this building, they were running up and down the halls there and wanting to pose for pictures after this interview is over. You could make a living out of this, couldn't you?
Yeah, I sure could, but only if they're good.
Oh, only if they're good, okay. Well, let me tell you just a little bit about my background in Santa Claus and with my wife, Shanna, as Mrs. Claus. In 1990, I ended up with a Santa Claus suit that my son had had. And Mary Yanez, who had just started the senior adult program here at the college, she asked me if I could come as Santa Claus to a Christmas party. I said, okay, I sure will. So I show up, and of all things, she had some entertainment there. The Dance Alive group, Lorraine Alvarez Portillo and her daughters, belly dancers. And so when they were dancing to that belly dancing music, Mary said, get up there and dance with them. And so I ended up dancing with them. So I immediately turned myself into, I was dressed as Santa, and I became at that point in 1990. That was 26 years ago. Here we are in December of 2016. And I've had a great time doing those. And finally I got, 1991, Marco Lara, my co-producer of this show, asked me if I could do a spot, a Christmas spot, dressed as Santa Claus. So I did a little TV commercial for them. And so that we ran for a couple of years and did several of those spots over the years. Eventually I was asked if I would do a whole show. Sometimes I'd fill in for Mary Yanez on her show, Mature Living, and I was asked if I'd do my whole own show. So that's how this came about. And so my wife and I are still sometimes doing Santa and Mrs. Claus programs, and it's been wonderful. Let me ask you, Santa, tell me a little bit of the history of Santa Claus. How did you come about?
Well, I was born in the year 2007. And in about the middle of that, or towards the end of that century, I was the only child of some very, very rich parents, and they died, and I went to an uncle, and he raised me. And I ended up being in an order of priests that lived in the caves up above Turkey. Well, from there, at a very young age, I was made a bishop, and I became St. Nicholas of Myra. And St. Nicholas of Myra is noted for his gift giving and his love of children. And from that time on, he just carried on that tradition of making sure that poor children had something, not only every year, but throughout the year, because he used to keep track of them. He was always out and about, and of course, his garments were red with the white trim, and he became known with the Dutch as
Well, he's called St. Nicholas.
Yeah,
we remember from Europe also the images in German.
Right.
And he was tall.
Santa Claus.
He wasn't chubby in some of the pictures that we've seen. People can go to the internet and see what St. Nicholas looked like.
Exactly. And there are many images of him. And with the Dutch, he came to the United States. Sinterklaas, he was called by the Dutch, and that became Americanized to Santa Claus. And as you know, Coca-Cola in the 1930s made Santa Claus famous as the Coca-Cola Santa.
They commercialized Santa Claus.
Yeah, they commercialized Santa Claus and tried to sell Coca-Cola. In fact, that suit that you see in those commercials is considered the Coca-Cola suit.
Okay.
Yeah, there's several different suits, and mine is not the Coca-Cola suit. But it's been a long, loving tradition of giving and love. And That's what Santa Claus tries to portray.
And a man along the way wrote a very famous booklet, a small book, The Night Before Christmas.
Right, the night before
and
Christmas.
we have the reindeer and the sleigh and all of those parts of the story. You have any thoughts on that you'd like to share with the audience? Are you ever asked about where do you park the sleigh and where are the reindeer?
Well, I was asked once. I visited a home, a very young girl, kindergartner, and I spent an hour with her that evening. It was Christmas Eve, and she asked me where my sleigh was. And I said, well, they just stop wherever I have to get off. And by, Santa has magic powers, and I just float down to the area and come in and visit. And then when I go, I just go back up into the sleigh, and then we go on to the next visit.
Now, what is this story about the chimney? Why do you have this in the story of coming down the chimney?
Well, coming down the chimney goes way back to St. Nicholas of Myra. And there were 3 poor girls that didn't have money. The dad didn't have money for dowries. And so he was very concerned about that. And St. Nicholas found out about that, and he took care of, when they came of age, of the first 2 daughters. Mm-hmm. But the father was very curious as to who was dropping the gold through his window. So he stayed up one night, and St. Nicholas found out about this. And so we went to the house the night the girl was going to become of age, and instead of throwing it through the window, he went on the roof. And it just so happens that she had washed her stockings that day and had them in the hearth, and they were drying, and he threw the gold down the chimney, and it landed in her stocking. And so that going through the chimney is kind of how that got started. But you always remember, it doesn't matter whether you have the children have chimneys or not. With Santa's powers, he can get into your house.
Okay. And we trust Santa. We trust Santa.
If you've been good.
It's always good. Okay.
I got to check the list to make sure you've been good.
Now, since the image is that of the Coca-Cola Santa, why do we have the story that you leave cookies and milk for Santa Claus?
That goes way back, and it has to be chocolate chip cookies, not just any cookies.
Oh, I agree. That's my favorite.
Chocolate chip cookies and milk. And I really don't know how that got started. And I guess some of the children thought that Santa needed a snack because he's out making all those rounds around the world for the night. So
in the age at which Santa became a figure,
right,
many people were rural people that had animals, goat's milk, cow's milk, and so on. They didn't have Coca-Cola.
No.
So I think it would probably be very natural for them to leave milk for Santa Claus.
Milk and cookies, chocolate chip cookies.
Okay, tell me about some of your favorite events here in El Paso that you've done as Santa Claus. You do. See, I'm an amateur Santa Claus. I don't get any money for doing my programs, but you sometimes actually work for malls such as Bassett or Silla Vista.
I worked in Bassett Center for 2 seasons. And I worked in Cielo Vista for 1 season. Working in the mall is a very grueling job.
I can imagine.
Because there's only one Santa, and it's 12 hours a day, and they're already there right now. I went to visit the Santa just last week.
Here we are in what, early November, the second week of November.
He mentioned to me that they started the first weekend in November at Cielo Vista.
Okay. But
they're not at Bassett Center yet.
Okay.
It's a smaller mall, and they do it by market and so forth. But there was some very memorable events at the Cielo Vista one, and I had a few at the Bassett Center. The one I had at Bassett Center was I worked with the NICU babies at Providence Hospital. And there was a baby there that I had worked with that was in very serious condition. It was troubling to me because there was nothing we could do for him, and we didn't expect him to live. Right. Well, I was in Bassett Center, and it was like a Sunday night, and things were slow. And this was about 3 years after I visited that baby. Well, I looked down the mall, and in the wheelchair, here comes this mom wheeling this wheelchair up, and lo and behold, it was that baby.
Oh.
oh, it brought tears to my eyes because I had thought he had passed. And they had his respirator on the they had his respirator on the carriage and the little monitor that could show his life
Oh, my word.
sight. And I recognized her, and she recognized me. Of course, I'm Santa. And so we put him on my lap, and she sat on this side, and then her sister was with her, and she sat on this side. And we were just ready to take the picture, and we're all smiling and everything, and she pulled his air tube out. Well, I got cold and shivers all over because I looked at that monitor and I could see it going down. I said, oh my God. And so we stopped. That picture wasn't going to be used. I said, why did you do that? Oh, I don't want to see that in the picture. I said, well, let me know first before you do something
You're
like
afraid
that.
she's going to kill him.
Oh, my heavens. Then we took another picture, and it came out really, really nice. And when we left, I said, God bless you, and we'll pray for you. And she says, we'll see you next year, God willing.
Yeah.
Well, the next year I was at Cielo Vista, and she came back.
Oh.
And he was still living with us.
Well, you know, you bring a lot of joy to so many people, but they also bring joy to you.
Oh, my, it's awesome. It's unbelievable. And the joy that it brings to me is so overwhelming at times that I get tears in my eyes just from that.
Right.
And I guess that's probably why the biggest reason that I am doing what I do.
Now, kids see a lot of Santas in different locations, okay? And some of them, they come and check your beard
Right.
pretty regularly. What do you say when they start pulling your beard?
Well, I have, surprisingly, excuse me, I haven't had it done too often. It's a lot of time with adults that want to see if it's real.
Yeah, right.
And I will sometimes let them, but, it can't be a nuisance when they're pulling on your beard.
Right.
I've had little tiny babies do it. In fact, we had one little baby, her fingers were so entwined in my beard that we had to pull the hairs out from between her fingers.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, but this is really my beard.
Occupational hazard.
Yeah, occupational hazard. Yep.
Now, what about, I see you put on a little weight, Santa Claus, and from the time you were St. Nicholas. What about all this food that everybody's putting up to you? You have to deal with this.
Yeah, I know, but you just got to do it, like they say, in moderation.
Oh, okay.
In moderation. But boy, I can't help those chocolate chip cookies. They're just so good. A nice cold glass of milk.
Right.
It's hard to pass that
Now,
up.
you mentioned schools. Say a word about schools.
The schools, what we're doing with the schools, and it's a really neat project that we're doing with the schools, and we're taking pictures with Santa with the children, and the schools are getting, and I don't know if I can say this, they're getting a rebate on every package that the children purchase. The schools get money back. So the people that I'm working with provide this for the schools. And
Now, what kind of packages? Is it
Well,
companies are giving them packages?
packages for pictures.
Oh, for pictures.
Yeah, they
Okay,
take pictures. And for every package that the people purchase, out of what they pay, the school
Gotcha. Okay, I've got you.
gets $5 back.
Okay, okay.
So if you figure if you take 300 pictures at one school, 300 children, the school gets back about $1,500.
Well, you're one of the most photographed persons in the world.
Well, I hope so. I know I'm in a lot of homes.
Oh, my. Do you have any that sometimes they were sitting on your lap at some point in their life and years go by and they're standing up beside you and sometimes even maybe bringing, I've been doing an amateur Santa for 26 years.
Right.
And sometimes they'll say, I have pictures of you when I was so.
Sure.
Are you old enough? You're old enough to have that happen.
Oh yeah, I've had where I have a car
Okay.
to drive around El Paso, and I take it in there for service, and they all know me as Santa, and they know that I go to the schools, and the girl that waits on me, the service person that waits on me, says, "Yeah, I told her, I says, you know, I says, I'll take pictures here at the showroom. Just let me know. Oh, we took it at the school. Oh, really? I said, what school was that? And she told me, and I said, that was me. She says, no. She went and got the picture and brought it back, and sure enough, it was me. And she didn't even realize I had taken a picture with her daughter. And then I had another instance. We were eating one time at that Mexican restaurant that was down on Montana, and the little boy came over to our table and wanted to tell me what he wanted for Christmas. And I wasn't dressed as Santa, I was just in civilian clothes and everything, and he told me, and he was in the 3rd grade, and so he was a very, very nice little boy, and he went back to his table. Well, that restaurant closed down, and it moved over to the west side. And so about, I think it was last year at this time, we were in that restaurant after we went to the basketball game. And I'm sitting there, and this is 3 years later now. This young man comes over, and he's now in the 6th grade, and it was the same young boy that I had taken a picture at the other one, and he still believed in Santa, and he wanted another picture with me, and it was just him and his mom like it was before, and that was really exciting for me.
That's a good story.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes children are afraid of Santa Claus. They don't want to, so they back off. And so, but do you ever have anyone that they're with you, they're willing to accept you as Santa Claus, but they get smart with you? And you ever have to get back smart with them and kind of growl at them or anything?
Well, I don't know if I should tell this story, but there was, and this was when I was at the mall. And sometimes, especially during the end of the season, you know, when you've been picking children up.
There's a lot of tension, yeah.
A lot of tension and putting people on your laps, and there's a lot of people in the line. And this little boy and his brother was there, and the little brother was rolling around on the floor. And I was sitting like this and looking at him, and the little brother was standing right here. And they were shaking our heads, and Mom and Dad didn't know. This little boy was, he was going to tantrum on the floor.
Yeah, I've seen those.
And the brother was just shaking his head, and he had his hand on my jacket here, and I looked at him and I said, you know what Santa is when he's not Santa? He said, what? I said, I'm a pirate.
A pirate.
So that kind of broke it up a little bit, and the little boy finished his tantrum, and he could come on my lap, and we took the pictures, and it ended up pretty good.
So you have a basket full of stories.
Oh, lots of stories. Good ones and bad ones.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But overall, the children are awesome. Always. The children are awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Now, that's all I'll say.
Well, Santa, I think you're awesome.
Oh, thank you very much.
And you do realize that all of us here at EPCC TV, we have been well behaved this year.
Well, I have to check my book. You know, everybody says they're well behaved.
Oh, you have a book.
I have a great old big old book that the elves take care of, and we're getting into technology now, and all the elves have iPads.
Uh-huh.
And they keep track of everybody. It's easier to keep track of you now than it was years ago.
Oh, well, I'm sure.
Because a lot of people used to just slip by because it was hard to keep track of you. But now with the new data and everything, oh no, we get you everybody.
Well, that reminds me also, the lists have changed. The kids now are asking for electronic things.
Oh, yeah. But Santa is in the business of making toys.
Okay.
He doesn't make electronics.
Oh. Okay.
He makes toys.
Okay.
And that's what I tell the children when they ask for, they ask for iPhones, and they ask for MacBooks, and they ask for iPads. And I said, well, we can hint to your parents, but Santa makes toys.
Okay.
What kind of toy do you want?
So you're a toy kind of guy.
Yeah, we're a toy guy. We're toy makers. Always have been, years and years. It's easier to make the toys now than it was years ago, because all we had was, chisels and hammers and wood. But now we have access to a lot of different things, so we can make some pretty nice toys.
Well, you'd have to totally retrain all of the elves if you shifted over to the electronics.
It's automatic.
And besides, there are too many glitches with electronics. And then they would be mad at Santa Claus.
We have a great
because-
IT elf that takes care of all of that.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, no problem. You know, elves are real sharp. They may be tiny, but
Yeah.
they're really, really sharp.
Oh.
Learn very fast.
Oh my goodness. Well, maybe next year you can bring some elves with you.
We'll see. You know, they don't like to come south though.
Oh, I don't blame them.
Yeah, they like the cold, and they don't like to be seen. They like to be in the background with their own kind. And you know, they're known as Elvins.
Elvins, okay.
Elvins,
Okay.
E-L-V-E-N,
Okay.
Elvins, yeah. They're only about 3 foot tall, kind of rounded, pudgy,
Yeah.
you know, long arms, but they're really, really smart.
Okay. Well, look, we also have other traditions, Christmas trees, and I'm
trees.
sure that when you go places you see images of yourself sometimes on the trees and presents under there, and some of them have images of Santa Claus on them perhaps.
Right.
So you're one of the most famous persons in the whole wide world.
Yep, and Santa always says Merry Christmas.
Always says Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. You don't say Happy Holidays,
No.
you say Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And a ho, ho, ho.
Ho.
Any last word before our time runs out? This
No, there's, like I said, there's about 46 days left. We're really busy right now. The elves are working really hard. The reindeer are getting real fat, you know, because it's a long trip around the world.
Right,
They have to have that energy.
Right.
The sleigh is getting all shined up. And we got some jet propulsion now on the sleigh. We've modernized that sleigh. That sleigh really scoots. It's just a good sleigh.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
Oh, yeah. And
And you still have Rudolph?
we still have Rudolph and all the other reindeer. And, Rudolph, okay, because Rudolph has been around for a long, long time. And this Rudolph that we have now is not the original Rudolph.
Okay.
You know, it's a kind of like an ancestor
Okay.
from Rudolph, but they all carried the same genes.
Okay.
And yeah, he's still with us. Nose still glows.
Okay.
Still guides my sleigh.
You know, the weather forecasters, as we get closer to Christmas, they start talking about Santa is on the way.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever seen any of those?
Yep. Sure have.
And how's that make you feel?
Yeah, well, you know, with all this technology and the radar, there's not a whole lot I can do about it. I'm up there and they just ping on me and follow me for wherever I'm going.
But they're giving it away.
Not too much. No.
It's a big world after all, okay. You know, there are a lot of Santa villages around. I've seen some at
Yeah.
Williamsburg, Virginia, and California, Lake Arrowhead, Big Bear up in there, Santa's Village in Colorado. How do you feel about that? There's so many Santas at all these Santa villages, but
One of the best ones that I know of is Santa Claus, Indiana.
okay,
Excuse me. There is actually a Santa Claus, Indiana, has the postmark and everything. And the whole town is Christmas 24/7, 365 days a year. And, you know, Santa goes to school. He can once a year. I've been to Santa University once. I would like to go to the Santa Claus University in Indiana. And they have classes there for Santa
wow.
and how to behave and how to deal with children and how to deal with adults and how to answer questions.
And how to stay healthy.
And oh yes, how to stay healthy. Lots of vitamin C.
Okay.
And but there's another one in Nevada, Colorado that I've been to. There's one in Wisconsin. That's a famous one. And a lot of these Santa schools started in the 1930s.
Wow.
Yeah. In fact, I think the gentleman who used to be the sales manager of Macy's became the very first Santa portrayer for Macy's.
Well, Santa became famous with Macy's by window displays and
Oh, yeah.
things of that nature, as well as in the store.
Right. And I know that Santa Claus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's a helper of mine.
And you're okay with that?
Yeah, because he's helping me.
Okay.
You know, it's hard to be everywhere except on Christmas Eve.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's when the magic comes.
Oh, my goodness sakes. Well, it's a real treat here. Do they have classes for Mrs. Claus at these universities? Okay.
They sure do.
Well, Santa Claus, I just am so thrilled. I just could not imagine I would have an interview with the one and only Santa Claus.
There you go.
Oh, my
Merry
goodness.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too. Ho, ho, ho! What do you think about this program for EPCC TV? For all of you out there, those of us on staff at EPCC wish you a very wonderful Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'm Leon Blevins, El Paso, Texas.